We are live and talking Dr. Atomic and the
Yeah,
Pipe
you know,
and Dope book.
Don Markstein did an article on Dr. Atomic.
Oh, he did?
So he may have been popular enough in the
Yeah.
70s.
I said
And Larry
as I was just telling you,
Todd,
I was just a little too young for underground comics, so I don't know a whole lot about them. Never saw them in the late '70s when I was a kid. Comic Crack is the one who collects underground comics. He's got a ton of them.
here it is. Yeah, Larry Todd worked with Mark Bode on Cobalt 60.
Oh, okay.
So that's where you may know him from.
Yeah, that might be it. But an
Yeah,
interesting
I've never
book. It
ran
gives.
into those underground stuff. Like the most underground, I wouldn't even say it was underground because I would get it at a comic book shop. So it was like the independents, and it would be the
Yeah.
ones that are out there, kind of. Um, Omaha, the Cat Dancer,
Good evening.
the
Yeah,
black and white book.
they're still not as under. I got a lot of the alternative stuff from those days, but it's still nothing like these undergrounds. Wilson froze up on us.
Apparently, because that's why I stopped hearing
There he
background
goes.
noise. There it is. Yeah, we got background noise.
You froze up on
Was
us
that?
for a minute there, Wilson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys completely disappeared, so I wasn't sure what
Ah,
happened. And I had restarted my internet and my computer before
wow,
we even went on live.
froze up. Nice headlights on the back cover. Headlights. Like I was just reading the beginning because most of it. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really need to know how to build a grow house. Um, I don't. And then I think that there's even here's all the information on growing the plants. I think there's even hydroponics in here because I see tubes and things. I guess you got to
Hey
irrigate
man,
them.
you might feel the need to grow your own inspiration, man.
And there's all sorts of combustion gas came start. Wow, look at all this stuff. This is really chock full of information for growing your pot in the '70s. Oh, I think that's a bagpipe hookah.
That's complicated.
Wow.
I
I
think
gotta
it would
say,
be easier to smuggle Cuban cigars to America.
I've said to them, Alan Harvey, who I follow on Twitter, did a nice job on the page reconstruction, though. It looks really good. I mean, certainly much better than most scanned comic stuff you see. I don't know if he had access to the original art, but it looks like I mean, it looks as good as if it came from the original art. I don't know, but I got to say they did a good job with it. So if you're into learning how to grow pot 1970s style or 1960s style, I don't even know which.
We would like to remind you that it's a federal offense to grow your own pot. You have to be
It
licensed
is.
for it.
Dr. Atomic. And I bought that one just on a lark too, because it wasn't on my pull list. They just had one shelf copy of it, and I went, all right. It looks like an old underground. I'll give it a I'll pay $4 for it. I think it was just for curiosity's sake. Yeah, $3.99. Gotta look these days because there's so many $5 books, and I buy them less.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and boy, do I have a lot of history of comic book production to talk tonight.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Because for the last couple of days, I've been emailing with Corey Settlemeyer,
Hmm.
folk hero Corey, and he is still freelance editing stuff for Marvel. All like he's done a lot of their Masterworks line. And he really, goes and tracks down the original art if he can, the original film, the original whatever he can make to make the books as good as possible. That's why they call them in the early 2000s. I remember I was on the Marvel Masterworks website, and they used to call him Folk Hero Corey because that's the website. Those are the Masterworks fans who want the Masterworks to be perfect and exactly how they originally printed. Not the later printings where they corrected things. And that's what Corey did. Good evening, sleepy reader.
Do you think that Corey would like to come on the show? Because I have a suggestion for him.
I'll ask him, but probably not. But I can always pass on the selection.
Well,
I don't think he does social media very much. That's why I haven't heard from him in a decade.
We've already talked about something. It would be easier for Marvel to license out some things, like they're doing with with Fantagraphics with those Atlas reprints.
Right.
And I was wondering if Marvel would like to license out not only the production but the entire aspect of selling the Epic collections. And if in any way that would make it easier for an outside party to deal with different license holders, so you could do a Thundercats Epic collection, for example, or with the thing that actually people want the most, which is the Micronauts Epic collections and the ROM the Space Knight Epic collections. And you can finally do that Power Man and Iron Fist Volume 2 Epic collection with the ROM crossover.
So let me understand what you want.
I imagine that some people don't want to, these corporations don't want to work with Disney.
Right.
Not only because they're rival corporations.
So you're saying
but also
you're wondering if like a third party could get the rights for Micronauts.
Yes.
Would Marvel help them out with the files?
Not even that. I mean, it's just well, in the case of the Micronauts, you do have the appearances of Marvel characters. Since you're going to have to pay license fees to both parties, the fact that you're an outside party would probably. I was wondering if it would make it easier to license out material from both parties, knowing that none of the big corporations who own the intellectual property would be working with each other. So it's more of a case that you're trying to do a product line, would
it be easier for a third party to get that done rather than one of the two parties? Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if Corey would know the answer to that, but I can check.
Because you call it Epic, do you mean the Epic line as well, or that was just what you called the book?
No, Epic collections are what Marvel's putting out with reprinting the old. So they're the color volumes.
Nothing to do with Epic Comics.
Just Hold on. Yeah, Epic collections are the color collections that replace the essentials.
I see. I wasn't aware that they had a new name for it.
Epic collections.
These ones.
Okay.
And there are a couple of comics that are not being included in those collections. For example, there's an issue of Power Man and Iron Fist that's a crossover with Rom the Space Knight. So they take out Power Man and Iron Fist number 73 doesn't appear in Epic Collection Power Man and Iron Fist Volume 2. And Marvel 2-in-1 number 21 does not appear in the Marvel Epic Collection Marvel 2-in-1 Volume 1 because the guest character with the thing is Doc Savage.
Well, Sleepy Reader likes that there are a few comics out there that can't be reprinted like Rom and Marvel.
Well,
Not
I don't like
Paolo,
it.
he
I
can
want
get those
everything.
comics. Yeah,
Everything
Epic
that
comes from
exists
Marvel.
must be reprinted.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
So,
from my experience working for various companies and talking to various publishers about reprinting items that are not owned by the company, they will not lift a finger. I was told they will
right.
not lift a finger
hmm
if they're not going to make any money off of it.
Well, but they are,
Uh,
because the idea here is that it would not be Marvel. See, that what Marvel don't want. Marvel right now, as a subsidiary of Disney, are the type of people who would rather make $100, having $100 of profit, and not share any of it, than having $100,000 of profit and sharing $1,000 of it.
Right.
The idea here is that it's like it would be somebody else would publish the Epic collections.
Right. Because
They would
to
pay Marvel
them,
for it.
right. To them, when you license stuff, it's free money, as
Mhm.
opposed to them sharing the profit. I can
Sure.
see,
Yeah.
because they don't
So
like to
Right.
share the profit, but licensing it is free money. But you'd have to figure out how to license it from both of them.
Yeah.
Speaking
I
of
understand.
licensing, yeah.
Right. I
Speaking of
understand that,
licensing, was
but
that
in the
Paolo?
case
Paolo,
of something
Wilson.
like getting the film, you're going to have one
Mhm.
company that has the film. And from my experience, getting the film from certain companies, they're not going to do it because that means they have to pay someone to go and get the film. So
Ah,
even if it's licensing, they're going to go back and forth whether or not they can get that film.
which is
Mhm.
also why this guy right here, Page Reconstruction, Alan Harvey, just finished his, there's his name there, just finished his 3-year project of reconstructing all of the Micronauts from scans of the printed comic. So on his own, he scanned in all the Micronauts comics and in Photoshop reconstructed it all as best he could. And he did a pretty nice job on it. And just kind of as, because I think he either works for or has a printing company too, just so he prints his own bound volumes of things like the Micronauts. So he's actually done all the work on the Micronauts. If you
Mhm.
can get the license, he's done all the
You,
work.
yeah. Nobody else has to work. Marvel don't have to work on it. Whoever owns Mego doesn't have to work on it. It's
Right.
done. You
Micronauts are
know.
owned by Hasbro, I believe.
Okay. So yeah. So it's
And
Hasbro. So,
Hasbro has a publishing um, connection with, I think it's IDW.
mhm.
Whoever's currently printing ROM, because ROM is also owned by Hasbro.
Yeah.
Right. They printed new ROM, but not reprinted the old stuff.
Right.
Right. So if you can convince IDW, who has the license, through Hasbro, and then get Marvel on board, anything can be done if there's enough money thrown at it.
Sure.
But all I know is that my dealings with someone, and that's why I question Epic,
Mhm.
because I do know some people who own their comics through Epic cannot get their film through Epic, although the contract states they're supposed to get the film upon request, but people have been having problems getting it. And the publisher has mentioned, for certain companies, have mentioned, we're not going to do that. We're not. We don't have anyone to do that for.
Yeah.
You know, even though
Yeah,
it's
because they
contract,
don't.
but you know,
Matter of fact,
Sure.
first let me say the sticker shock of the week. Speaking of licensed comics, which I guess isn't licensed anymore, Marvel put out a Planet of the Apes collection of the comic Planet of the Apes, not the magazine. So I can't remember how many issues it was, around 9 or 10. It was a pretty slim volume, must have been a couple hundred pages. Hardcover came out this week. $100 was the price on it. I was like, holy cow. Because again, volume was a couple hundred pages. That's it. What looked like it should have been at most a $50 book. $100, $120 Canadian. I was just like, that's crazy. Even the comic shop owner was like, ooh, he's like, I don't know why he ordered it. He's like, yeah, that was a bit of a sticker shock. So it's still there in a month or two. I'll give you a deal on it. I was like, all right. I didn't particularly want it, but I was like, wow, $100. That was the slimmest $100 volume I've ever seen. Planet of the Apes, the color comic book.
I don't even remember seeing those color comic books. I remember the magazine.
Right.
I've held artwork from the magazine, but I didn't know
Right.
that they had that they did a comic book.
Yeah, like I said, it was around for less than a year, I guess. So.
Yeah, it was reprints only as well from the magazine, but in
Oh,
color.
reprints from the magazine, colored.
Mhm.
Okay, I didn't even know
Adventures
that.
of-
I may have had one issue of it. I don't even know because I never
Adventures
saw it.
on the Planet of the Apes lasted for 11 issues, and it
11
was only
issue?
reprints. Mm-hmm.
Ah, so now the reprint of the reprints is $100. Ooh, I was.
I wonder if it would be
But the
cheaper
re-
just getting individual comic books.
But the reason I was talking to Corey or emailing him was he emailed me out of the blue. Because, like I said, Corey is the one who goes and finds the film. By the way, for what he's doing, but I guess he's a freelancer. He's not on staff. He's been a freelancer at Marvel for 20 years now. He was an editor on staff for a few years. But he didn't want to be on staff anymore, and he quit. But they kept him on as a freelance editor, A, because he did such a good job, and because B, no one else wanted that job. Editing Marvel's old reprint stuff is not the glamour job of editorial. If you're trying to move up the editorial chain, you want to edit the X-Men and the Avengers and the Spider-Man. If you're stuck editing old reprints, that was always the job no one wanted until Corey got it, which is why everybody was, not happy. Hey, there's Chris Girusso.
Mhm.
That's why everybody was not happy with the reprints before Corey, because no one really cared.
Yeah, well, that's why I understand why people call him folk hero.
Yeah, that's why they call him Folk Hero Corey.
When he started getting involved, there was a noticeable jump in quality with Marvel reprints,
Right.
because that was always the weak spot in publishing. I love my collection of Squadron Supreme, but that design and overall printing quality is not good.
Because, like I said, no one the trade paperbacks are a whole other thing. So that was even, I think the same people have been in that for a while, but that was even like a step up from the old reprints. That was like trade paperback. I think I can picture his face. I can't remember his name. I think he's been in the trade paperbacks for a while, but he doesn't have to do any restoration or stuff because it's all new stuff. But like Corey doing that old stuff. Like he loved it, so that's why he's still doing it 20 years later, freelance. But anyway, he emailed me. Chris, I'm talking about. I just heard from Corey Settlemeyer this week, so we're going deep into the Marvel production woods here. So he called me. He wanted to know if I knew anything, and it's funny because he couldn't find anybody who knew anything about this because it's kind of like in between eras. He talks to like Michael Higgins about stuff. He talks to Elliot Brown about stuff, and he's talked to me about stuff over the years. But here's something I didn't know. I want to track down the comics and see, because he digs up the old film for this stuff, which I didn't think that. I thought Marvel got rid of all their film by this point, but I guess they didn't. I guess they have it for some stuff, because the stuff he's reprinting now is from the late '80s. He must have got rid of the raw. And so he was looking at Fantastic Four 329 and Fantastic Four 330. And he says at that point in time, which is like 1988, 1989, right before I was at Marvel. There's a noticeable drop in the quality of the black line. And he sent me a couple of samples in the email. He was asking me if I knew anything about it. And I thought it was from later scans of that stuff. He said, no. It's the actual film. He thinks that at that time, they were doing something new in digital in the film that made the black line go down in quality. And I was like, I never noticed that. I wasn't really reading stuff, but like, if the printed black line went down in quality, fans usually notice stuff like that. And like us
that sounds familiar.
Are still complaining about the early '90s DC, early '80s DC comics with the flexographic printing when everything went down in quality. But I never heard anything about that late '80s period.
Was it the plastic plates?
That was the plastic plates.
And then they get overheated, and then you get the wiggle.
Right, and at the end of the run, as the plastic plates wore down, the line would spread.
Yeah.
I've got some really bad quality printings from the early '80s, especially.
That's not what Corey's talking about, though.
No, that's not what Corey's talking about. He's talking about end of the '80s. And he said he's looking at the actual film too, or scans from the actual film. And he said you can tell. And he said it wasn't repro film; it was the original film. He said you can tell by the quality of the film which was the original film they shot, and which was film they shot later on, repro film from the stats. They're like two different films. You can tell. So he was like, something must have happened on the printer's end when they were making film in a new way that was somehow digital, that made the line quality go down. It's like, now I have to try and find issue. And he said it was like across the line. These things usually happen like across the line at the same time, because it's a change at the printer or the separate, wherever they make the film. So I was like, ooh, that's wild. I never heard that before. And I pulled out an issue from like 1989 of some random Spider-Man, but with Todd McFarlane. And as Corey said too, the pulpy paper can hide a lot of sins. So maybe you couldn't tell that the line quality went down because the newsprint wasn't sharp enough to catch it. So it's like, what a sleepy here. Are there still plates involved in the current printing process? I don't know. I think so, but I think they're done differently. They're not. They used to be big metal plates. I don't know what they are. Now they're kind of thin metal around rollers, which I think are reused. I think they acid etch the stuff off and just reuse the metal. And it's really thin metal. So I'm not 100% sure how offset, but there still have to be plates on the offset process, because that's what offset is. Offset printing means that you have the image is offset to a plate and then put on the paper. So you take the image from one place, offset it to another, and then put it on. I think that's where offset actually comes from. But they have like the short run printing, like where is it? I think this is another comic I got this week. CEX. This is Andy Schmidt's company. Joseph Schmalke's 7 Years in the Dark. I think this is short run printing. I'm not 100% sure, but I only thought it because the colors, look vibrant, and the pages were kind of stuck together as I pulled them out. And like, I'm not 100% sure this is the short run. Like, short run printing is now inkjet. They have these big machines that are basically inkjet printers rather than offset. And like short run comics where you're only making a few hundred or a couple thousand copies are on these short run presses. Like, where is this? I know these are short run. This is one of the Bad Idea comics that I've been doing. This like Bad Idea, like 12 pagers, and they're just sort of like little 12 pagers that they use for promotion. They just give them away at cons and stuff or whatever, send them out. And these are like short press, and so this is printed with, like I said, an inkjet printer, but bigger and more sophisticated. So that's completely different technology than offset printing. But you really can't tell that much on you really can't tell that. This is by a company called Ready Comics, and this is some of the. It looks the same. Short Run didn't look the same as an offset comic 10 years ago. Now it does. It doesn't look so different. I mean, I really, like I said, I can't tell if this is Short Run or not. I think it is, but I really can't tell. That's how good Short Run comics have gotten. But this was decent. This guy, Joseph Schmalke, I bought a couple of his other comics last year, I think. And I think this might be a reprint of some stuff that they're relaunching. It's a Wizard School comic, but it's really dark. But like I said, I bought this one just because I liked his art and a couple of the other comics he did. And he had real wacky stories. Scary face. A bunch of kids have to go to a wizard school. Only 7 out of 75 of them are going to survive. First issue was good, but, not exactly a revolutionary story. So does anybody have any comics from 1988 that they like? Like, I'm gonna figure it because it's between FF 329 and 330. So I wonder if you use like a Mike's Newsstand to look up all the comics that came out those 2 weeks, because I wasn't buying Marvel comics then, to see if there's any noticeable difference in quality of the Black Line.
My whole collection starts around that era, so I would have them, but because that's where the collection starts, those are going to be the bottom boxes of books. So I don't think I have anything lying around here from that time period.
Yeah, I don't think I do either. Well, the only thing I might have is Captain America, because that was the last book I bet I have some Captain Americas from that era on my shelf.
So you said 329, 330?
329 and 330.
Okay, so 329, that comes out with a cover date of August. Okay, let's see, Marvel.
Because I definitely would have all the Spider-Man books in that time period.
Yeah.
But I don't recall any difference in the printing other than thinking that's the way the prints are.
Yeah, I never heard anyone mention it.
I do recall seeing through the black plate sometimes and seeing like a darker color, like a blue underneath.
Oh yeah, that was normal.
But that was the norm of it.
Yeah.
So we have Amazing Spider-Man 318, Avengers 306.
What year was it?
This is a cover date August 89.
Okay, so it was August 89.
Mm-hmm. And then 330 is the next month, so that would be September 89.
That was right before I started working at Marvel. My first day at Marvel was sometime in November 89. What month in 1988? It's 1989, it turns out. August 1989 was the last month of the old one, and September was the first month of the new one, I think.
High school.
And as Corey said, it must have lasted until we digitized around 94, 95.
But what are we looking at specifically?
We're looking at.
I can tell.
We're looking specifically at the black plate. how crisp
Right.
the line is in the comics.
Mhm.
We'd have to
Okay.
see. I
Right.
actually
Well,
found some. I found the official digital versions from Marvel, but you can't tell from them. The line quality, it's too low quality to tell. I was looking for like scans of the issues, but couldn't find any scans of the issues online.
well, maybe read
Find
comic
scans of all
online.
the old stuff. What was
Maybe the
that?
website that we can. Maybe the website that we can legally mention has it. So let's
Ah,
try to. So let's try to go for Uncanny X-Men. See if that helps.
oh, that's right. I only looked up those 2 issues. I didn't cross-reference with the other months.
Uncanny X-Men helps because Mark Silvestri had that drawing style that was very sketchy
Yeah.
with then green ink. So we would be able to see if there's any
That was the
drop
Todd
in.
McFarlane Spider-Man era too.
Yeah.
People loved all his tiny lines.
So that would be 247 and 248.
I know I don't have those. What issues of Captain America would they be? Because I might have those on my shelf.
Let me just check here the X-Men's, and I'll let you know.
Daredevil 269 is August 89. We need August and September.
Captain
Yes,
America.
Captain America is the only thing I might have. I might not have them because I stopped keeping my caps. I would just read them and pass them on to some kids in the neighborhood. But I don't know what year my collection of Cap actually stopped. Because I still liked reading Captain America, but I was like, you know what? I doubt I'm ever going to read these again. And I have a lot of comics.
Okay, so let's see what I can do here. So it would be Uncanny X-Men 247 and 248.
Uncle X-Men.
So let's start with 247 and then we'll go to 248. Let me see if I can share these. Present, share screen. 247. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure we'll be able to see anything from here. But
Yeah.
let's see. So this is the cover to 247. And I'm just looking at the cover.
I don't know. The covers were printed separately, so I don't even know if we could tell from the covers.
All right, so let's go to the splash page. Okay, so this is the splash page for
This
247.
This looks like the digital version. This isn't the scanned printed version. We can't tell from these.
No. It's scanned because it has the indicia, and they take out the indicias at Marvel with the Marvel digital editions.
But that it looks too clean to be a scan of the actual comic. I mean,
but it is because it's got the indicia.
What's the DPI on it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, you're on the website. That's why. I don't think we're gonna be able to tell anything from it because the DPI is too low.
Well, let's see the next issue. So this is the cover.
Let me try.
And we can see from here. And let's go to. I don't know. This doesn't look different. I don't know.
Captain America 356. I'm gonna go see if I have that in the other room. Hold on.
America 356.
Nope, my Captain America collection stops at 340. Missed by that much.
Let's try with Captain America here. Yeah, read Comic Con. The website that we can't legally mention is not very tidy when it comes to finding stuff. Let's see now.
Doesn't have the greatest search engine.
There's not. The Grim Comics database does, but they don't have scans. So 356.
356. So I guess it'd be 356 and 357. We'd have to compare and contrast. But those white page scans look like the digital ones. So
Okay, might
I
be.
wonder if I have scans of those comics.
All right. So wait. Was I sharing it? I can't tell.
No, there's nothing
Let's
sharing
share.
at the moment. It was
Okay,
a gray
let's try to
screen for a little while.
Okay. All right. So let's try sharing again. Okay, 356.
There we go.
But this one is from the digital edition. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't. We're gonna have to track down some of the original comics. I actually looked up to see what the price of those two comics was on my comic shop. And they were like $10 an issue. I was like, no thanks. I don't
Really?
need to know that badly. Yeah, for those two FFs. I'm like, no thanks. I don't need them that bad. But the other thing I ended up talking to Corey about was, if you remember, my fascination with the clipped corners. And how and the slit on the top, how for about 10 years, from like, I don't even know, the mid 70s to the mid 80s, if you get original art, they've got clipped corners. Let me see if I can hold this up in the back so people can see. Whoops, that there's no sharp corner there. It's cut off. And that corner is cut off too. Oh, Comic Crack is sending me messages on Twitter. I wonder if he has scans. Let's see. Sent a photo. He's got some actual images. I don't know if we can tell from this. Let's see. Let me copy that image, put it into Photoshop. Let's see if I can share this now. Present. Share screen. Share screen. Window. There we go. There's a picture of Daredevil.
So this is 269.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Let me go back to see what else. This is issue. There's the indicia.
But the indicia didn't say which company printed the comic.
270 this is. So this is the one with the maybe. There we go. There's the black line in 270. I can't tell if it's looking particularly pixelated. It looks all right to me. I mean, there's pixels just from the photo, but the line itself, which is at 500%.
And coloring was pixelated at the time normally.
Yeah, we can see all those screens. So I don't know. Let me see if I can get another one here. What else did he send me? That was. Okay, this is the issue before. The line looks about the same in the photo, at least. I can't tell that anything's different in there. Does that line look any sharper? Let's see. Than this line. That's 500%. They're both at 500%. Let's get a few lines in there like that. Let's get a few lines in there like that. Yeah, I can't see much of a difference. I guess Corey can see the difference in the film, but we really can't see the difference in the printed version. So maybe it really was maybe it really did go down in quality in the film, but we couldn't take as Corey said, the pulpy paper hides a lot of sins. Yeah, 69. That's okay. We looked at them. Pics of DD 270. Yeah, we had two. I couldn't really see a difference in the black line of those two.
It might be that the switch from month to month may not be the same every month for the same comic.
Yeah, it could be. It could be the next day. We'll have to see. But like I said, it might not even be noticeable to us.
Yeah, and if we had to check comic by title by title, we would have to take a while. That's a lot of work.
And it obviously must not have been that noticeable because fans would have complained about it.
Right.
But back to the cut corners. I finally got an answer.
Yeah.
From this. Higgins answered it, and he said something about he thought there was pegs. They had to put the art on pegs, which didn't make any sense to me. Pegs for lining it up. But then it was when Elliot went on to describe the whole process too in this email. But his key line was he said the reason the corners were cut off. First of all. You have to know how they made the film with a giant camera and what's called a copy table. Did Chris freeze on us? And a copy table is just picture your kitchen table, except it's perfectly rectangular with grids on it. And you put the artwork on that table, and then there's a big metal window / door that folds down onto it. So you put the artwork that you want to copy on the copy table. You fold down the metal door. You lock it shut, and you turn on this vacuum, a literal vacuum like the vacuum cleaner in your house. It was that loud, and that creates a vacuum between in the glass on top of the table, so the artwork can't move. Often they tape it down first and then turn on the. I guess not everybody had the working. Maybe they didn't know how the working vacuum, but that's what you did. Turned it on, and then the table was like on its own hinge, and you'd make the table go from horizontal to vertical, and then the camera would shoot it. And that's how you'd make either stats or film. And like the big reason that the original art went down in size, who was it? Murphy Anderson figured out. I guess none of these guys at the printer are good at math. I'm pretty sure, or anybody, because they at 12 by 18, they got 3 original comic art pages on a sheet of film. Once it was 11 by 17, they could get 4 sheets of comic art on a film. Now, I got to figure It wasn't the film that was the problem. It was the size of the table, the copy table, which baffles me because the one time I used equipment like that was in like 1984, 1985 when I was in SUNY Sullivan, it is now. It was Sullivan County Community College then. And in my print production class, they had one of these machines that, a stat machine, film machine, whatever you call, big camera. So we'd go, they taught us how to use it. We'd go in there and make stats of stuff and make film and, because that's what we were there for, to learn how to use that stuff. But that table it was big. It could, the idea that it could only fit 4 11 by 17 pages. I'm only going by memory, but that thing could fit 6 to 8 11 by 17 pages easily, as far as I remember. It was it was a kitchen table size thing. So the idea that a professional printer, in Sparta, Illinois, or wherever they get, only had a little stat film machine, that blows my mind, first of all. But the reason, according to Elliot, the reason the corners were cut was because, like I said, usually whenever we at school were doing this, and whenever Robbie was making stats at Marvel, like the machines had grids on them. You put the piece of paper, line it up on a grid. If you were really cautious, you'd put some tape on it. Line it up on the grid so it doesn't blow, the wind from the door doesn't knock it down. Put it on there, line it up on the grid, close the door, turn on the vacuum, and it weren't moving. So what Elliot said was those machines they were using had registration marks right on them. And for those who don't know what a registration mark is, it's a little X with a circle. And we would use them like for setting up comics. If you had an overlay, and whenever you want two things on two separate pieces of paper to line up, you put registration marks on the base paper, you put the other piece of paper over it, and you put registration marks in the same spot. And they were like a roll of tape. We'd just take them off. And then when the printer got it, he could shoot one page and then shoot the other page and then line them up by the registration marks. But this particular, when they were making the film and putting the pages on the copy table, their copy table had, for some reason, had X's, registration marks, right built into the copy table. I assume for some other part of the process that had X's and registration marks built onto some other copy table somewhere else so they could line stuff up automatically. But for some reason, this doesn't quite make sense to me. They had to cut the corner after they put the comics down. They had to cut the corners so you could see the registration marks on the table. Now, that kind of makes sense in a stupid sort of way. The problem I have with it is if you look at, but at least that's the best explanation I've heard from someone who was there. But if you look at stuff like here, this is Mazzucchelli's Daredevil Born Again. And a lot of this stuff has got cut off pages, cut off corners. Here are your normal cut off corners. I don't know if you can see that right there, nice cut off corner. But as you flip back, there are some corners that are cut with the tiniest possible cuts ever. Now that is in no way, shape, or form, look at that one over there, gonna reveal an X. There's like 1/8 of an inch of paper missing on the diagonal. It's like, what, like, how could this corner cut, this little corner cut right there, is so tiny that how's that going to reveal an X like this one would? So that still baffles me about the whole process. And what kind of crazy machine? I got stuff falling as I put the books back. But it's like, what kind of crazy machine did they have there in Sparta, Illinois, where the printer? I think that's who made the film. I don't even know. That's where the printer was, right? The Sparta, Illinois one printed comics for years and years and years. But like, what kind of crazy machine did they have that they couldn't line it up on the grid? I don't understand that at all, but apparently that's the story of these cut corners. They had to cut them so that they could see the X registration marks underneath the pages.
I heard a version of this.
Yeah. What was your version?
Higgins told me they would tape the pages down,
Right.
and it was easier to just cut them off.
That's what I heard.
They would cut the tape, you mean?
They would cut the board.
Rather than
they would cut the side that's not taped down. So they would just cut it off instead of like delicately trying to peel the tape off.
But you still have to peel the tape off. But you still have to peel the tape off.
Apparently, I don't know. That's all. That's what I remember Higgins telling me.
Yeah, I've heard that story before, but I don't necessarily believe it because there's.
I just assumed like, okay, I guess. I just assumed they were fine with like a tower of tape building up over time.
That would make no sense because were you there when the stat machine was still at Marvel?
Yeah. No.
You can't have a tower of tape when you close that glass door.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's the version I remember hearing.
That doesn't make much sense, but it could be. It's just any version is just crazy. Because there was no, like I said, when we did it at school, I cannot believe that my local community college had a better machine than the biggest printing plant in the USA. I just refuse to believe that.
I would guess it's not the machine, it's the user. Because in your college, you have all the time in the world to put it down, set it up, take the image you need, and move on. Where a larger printer, I'm guessing, is closer of putting something down, slamming the top on it, taking a picture, and trying to do that for 22 pages per comic. Per how many comic books? So it's all about.
It ain't that hard. That's why the grids were there. You could put it on the grid and put one little piece of paper on the top,
right,
and it wouldn't move.
Right. So I don't see why to cut the paper. It had to be something else that had to do with speed. But I don't know what.
According to Elliot, it was the registration marks on the machine. Higgins said, I can't remember what Higgins was.
Do you have any copies of the film to see if the registration mark is in that area?
We'll have to ask Corey. I'll have to check with Corey in that because he's the one who's seen the film.
Yeah, I haven't seen film.
I've never seen it. I couldn't tell you. I'm gonna ask Corey that
years ago. Ask Corey. Yeah, because we would have to see.
I will definitely do. Because if anyone has seen the film, it's him. Because he's seen a lot of film. Mm-hmm.
It's
like what you do is the top is cut across all the way across the top. So at the top of every page is cut all the way across. So it's like, why would you tape down 1, 2, 3 corners and then all the way across the top? That's way more tape than you need to use to keep a page down.
Right.
And if there was a registration mark in the top, I guess it was easier to cut all the way across the top than to cut out the registration mark if there was one there. But why would there be a registration mark in 3 corners and the top? Elliot suspected that it may have had something to do with the comic pages going from big to small. But I've seen the small pages without, like stuff in the 60s wasn't cut like this. It was stuff from the 70s. And though I also was checking on that and was looking at the John Romita Artist Edition. Let's see, and a lot of this stuff, all 4 sides of the page were cut, not corners. They cut along the whole side of the page. Like these pages, all 4 sides of this page are cut. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a completely different thing now. Why was that done? All this stuff. It's like they cut are like a 1/4 inch off of all 4 sides, not the corners. So it's like, why would they? It can't be. These couldn't have been taped down, and it's definitely not faster to cut all 4 sides. The corners I can see. Maybe they started with all 4 sides cutting, and somehow figured out a way to do just the corners after. But I don't know. It's kind of nutty. I still haven't heard anything like this. All of these pages, all 4 sides are cut. Things that are lost to time.
And I would imagine it would have to deal with the machine itself, not changing the machine. That's why the paper may have changed size.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think of
like those Bunny number 11 pages I got are all oversized, not even on a standard size piece of paper. That was 1969, twice up. No one cut those pages. I got pages from the 1940s. Nothing's cut on them. The EC Comics artist editions I got, nothing cut on them. Matter of fact, let me look at Marvel Heroes, John Buscema. This is when they first changed sizes. The covers aren't cut. Covers all have everything on them. Oh, but the insides have 1/8 of an inch cut all around. So they must have started cutting all 4 edges immediately. Because here is there's if we look at these, these have all 4 edges cut, but not the corners. Like that, you can see there they cut. Those are 2 cut edges there. And I know this is right when they changed sizes, because one of the covers is twice up that they put in this folded thing. And there's nothing cut on this one. Here's another. Yeah, they have all the twice up folders on gatefolds, and it looks like the regular covers, which are so they only cut the inside ones. There's nothing cut on these covers, which are 1.5 times up. Oh, looks like the edge was cut on Thor 194, but not Thor 192. And only one side was cut. Nope, the top was cut too. Because that's interesting. So they must have figured something out between Thor 192 and 194 that meant they cut all 4 edges of the original art page at the printer. That is so weird. So first they cut all 4 edges, and then they figured out to cut just the corners. Why? It could have been just the quirk of like one guy. It's nice for Stan Lee that most of Kirby's notes were cropped off during the production process. We don't see the full extent of Kirby's contribution. Yeah. And erased. There's a mystery is probably a clue to the conspiracy that began in the 70s and has controlled history ever since. Yeah, there we go. Let's get QAnon in on this. He can tell us why.
Yeah, there's very little or nothing really known about the printers of the time. I've never seen an article. I never seen an article. The only time I ever seen an article about the printers was for, I think, Ghost Rider #1. And it was the article that was in the 50 Years of Marvel.
Sometimes there's articles on the printing process, but it's not really that in depth. It doesn't go into why you'd cut the corners.
Right.
It's not that in depth. But wild. Completely like it. I'm going to have to ask Corey if he's ever seen a film with those X's, the registration marks on it. What are you working on tonight, Chris?
Inking some stuff.
All right. Digitally or physically?
Digitally.
Digitally. He's a digital inker now.
I'm all digital now.
All? You're 100% digital now with those Officer Clawson books?
Officer Clawson was 100% digital.
Wow, you're a dead artist now, like Brian Boland.
What?
Brian Boland has been digital since like 1998. And
why
he
does that make him dead?
Some artist dealer said that's like you're like a dead artist now because he's producing no new physical work.
Yeah.
So whatever physical work was there before 1998 is what's there.
I might consider doing physical work if it was
if you can get Brian Boland money for it.
Well, if you can get that money, but also like, what's the market for original art? If it's Marvel and DC stuff, it's pretty high. But if it's like these kids' graphic novels, like Greg can't. Greg talks about like people they can't. No one. There's like no market for SpongeBob SquarePants pages.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there might be someday. I mean, there's no market now. There was no market for a lot of pages that are now worth a whole lot of money. Just ask some of those old-time artists.
I'll ask them right now.
Okay. You go ask them. Well, there was our deep dive into comic book production for the week. Woo!
Mystery that still needs to be solved.
Yeah. We've got more leads, but until I see that machine, I'll never know. Does pictures of that machine in process exist? You know, cutting off all 4, especially since, like, what was that?
What's the official name of the machine itself?
I don't know. A copy of just a... It makes no sense to me because I've used a copy table before. And we never had to trim the art in a certain way. Robbie never had to trim any art. Whitey never had to trim any art.
Right.
So why did they have to trim art? I don't know. Because I can't think of any world where you're lining up 4 rectangles on a rectangle, and it's easier to not make them rectangles. That's not how geometry works. If you want think about digital comics, what's the first thing we have to do? We have to make sure all the page sizes are the same. We have to make sure that the Photoshop size is the same as the Illustrator size, is the same as the InDesign size. Otherwise, how are we going to line them up?
Right.
But somehow, in the physical realm, they figured out a way where cutting them so they're not all the same size lines them up. That's what makes me go, huh? What is that process? How did they end up there? I don't get it. Is there an actual difference between digital ink and digital pencil? What distinguishes the two? This is a question for Chris. Where is he? Jared Osborne, detective of the obscure. Is there an actual difference between digital ink and digital pencil? Why distinguish the two? I think because one's finished, right? It's still maybe just because of the way we developed as artists, though, but there's still, you want to pencil everything, sketch it out, so
get everything down. Yeah, I guess so. It's like sketch it out until you're sure you know where everything is, and then you finally put the slick final lines down, and you just want to do it on a different layer.
It's just easier to still think of it as pencil and inks, even though it's all really digital drawing.
Yeah.
Because that was always my criticism of early stuff, like in the early 2000s, that was printed from pencil. My criticism of it was not like the quality of the penciler's work, was that the penciler wasn't always thinking of it being a finished drawing. Because there's stuff when you're penciling and you have an inker, there's stuff you leave for the inker to do. And there's stuff like when you're working in pencil, you just scribble in blacks. But if you just leave them sort of scribbled in blacks in the final version, it's distracting. Because like the energy of those scribbles can detract from the storytelling. When all of a sudden what was supposed to be a solid black is now a series of quick pencil scribbles. And it's like you're reading the story and you keep looking at that because the energy of a pencil scribble can be distracting. And there was a lot of that in the beginning of the reproducing from pencil age, the digital age.
There was a lot of problems.
Okay, thanks. I just figured out. You can. What was that, Wilson?
Yeah. So back then, I was doing a lot of coloring work, and coloring on pencil was a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
It was with the ink page, it made it easier to color things because there's a lot of thick business with an ink line. So you have to worry about the budding together of colors.
You knew where to start and stop.
Yeah, exactly. You knew exactly where to go, where to color it. There was a definitive line of two items next to each other. And I always hated coloring over pencils because it was unfinished and it looked unfinished. And then as a colorist, you had to kind of digitally ink as well as coloring. So it made the job 3 times more on it.
Mm-hmm. Digital inks. Let's see, what else did I get?
I just told Higgins they're trying to figure out the cutting corners thing.
Ah, okay.
And I sent him a link to the channel. So if he gets his email in time and he has nothing better to do, you may start getting some answers.
And wants to talk.
Yeah.
Red Zone number 2 of this 4-issue series, which I'm really buying for the Mike Diodato art and layouts. I like the graphic designy nature of all his layouts, and since he's working from photos, it looks like a lot like Paul Galassi working from photos at times. The story is, an old spy having to escape from a hostile Moscow. So it's a story you've kind of read before. Like I said, I'm really enjoying the Mike Diodato artwork on this one. Mike Diodato Jr., of course. Not to be confused with his father, who we have no idea who that is.
His father was a comic book writer in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s in Brazil. But he never used the Mike Diodato name.
But good stuff. Like, it's only 4 issues, so not a big commitment. Certainly fun. I enjoyed this one a lot. You know, like I said, it's just a fun comic. The Diodato artwork is cool. That's mainly why I'm getting it. Want to see my surprise comic of the week?
Sure.
Yeah.
I got a CGC comic.
Okay.
This is, for about 5 years now, I've been wanting to get a CGC comic just as a conversation piece. I've mentioned this before on this show. The cheapest you can get a CGC comic for on eBay is from $35 to $40. And any comic book you get for that price on eBay is because somebody gambled that some random book would be hot soon and they could make some money on it. So it's filled with books that you'd never, even books I have. Like, there's a lot of Thief of Thieves books on that I was looking for. Like, I don't know if you know that series. Series I bought, I like. One of my favorite series from the 2010s, Thief of Thieves from Image. But no one's looking for issue 9 of Thief of Thieves CGC. They just aren't. Lots of other, but like, what was that one? Not Magic Order. What was the Mark Miller one with Frank Quitely that got made into a Netflix series? All of a sudden, I can't remember the name of it. It got canceled after 1 season. The superhero one. Doesn't matter. Can't remember the name of it. But volume 2 of that had a lot of first issues CGC'd on it because it was going to be a Netflix series. Everyone knew about volume 2. Bunch of people must have gambled on it, and they all lost. This, like I said, the problem I had with getting a CGC book was no matter what, I would look and go, maybe that one, maybe that one, but it all came down to the fact that I'd be paying $35 or $40 for a $4 book, and I was always like, nah, don't want to do that. So I'd look and try to find one I almost liked and go, nah. What this one is, once again a comic that came out in the original came out in 2012. It's called Clone. Juan Jose Rip is the artist. So one of the things I liked about this, you really can't see it in this, but the cover is almost Jeff Darrow-like in the amount of detail, and it's a wraparound too. And the amount of detail that's in the cover. So there's a lot to look at in the cover. But I have the original series. It was I think it ran 20 issues from 2012 to 2015. But this isn't actually the first issue. This is a reprint of the first issue. This is Clone number 1 from the Skybound 5th Anniversary Edition. So the only place you could get this comic was in a box set sold at San Diego Comic-Con in 2015 of all these Skybound 5th Anniversary. Skybound is Robert Kirkman's imprint at Image. So I guess for 2015, the 5th anniversary, they put out this box set. And I think there's an Invincible number 1 in there, maybe a Walking Dead number 1. Why anyone would CGC the Clone number 1 from that? At my comic shop, we looked it up on the census, and there's 18 9.8s. I think there's out of all and there's 3 different versions of you didn't even know you bought the box set. And in it, you might get this version or the sketch version, or I think there was one other version. Out of all the versions, I think there was 36 sent into CGC, which isn't a lot, but seems like more than I would think would send in a random reprint from a box. And if you were to buy the box set today, it would cost you $100. for the box set because that's how much it is. So I figured I paid $36 for this. I think $36 for a book that's, you don't see this. So this is my conversation piece, CGC, a 9.8 of Clone #1. Let's see. I think Sleepy brought Clone too. Clone has great art inside. Get your X-ray glasses. Yeah. Good evening, Tit Goblin. I guess someone will CGC any possible comic. Exactly. Like I said, the reason I got this the guy took a loss on it, obviously, because it cost $25 or something to CGC a book. And when I say 36, that's with shipping. So this guy was probably just happy to make his money back. Now, who knows how long this was sitting on eBay? I was watching it for 3 months before I finally got it. But I can finally say I have a CGC comic. a Clone comic that nobody wants. Any of you guys ever read? What was that?
Clone? No, I've never read Clone.
I don't think anybody.
I have 2 books that are CGC. I didn't send them out to be CGC. I got one. The first one that I own. A friend of mine bought it and gave it to me because he knows I'm a Spider-Man fan. And what it was one of those, I think it was like an index book. So for it to be even CGC'd, it was like, why? Somebody put it out there, and he bought it for a song. And it was like, oh, Wilson would appreciate this because it's Spider-Man. Yeah. And then the other one is a mini-series Spider-Man book that was, I think, a Steve Lighto cover.
Okay.
From one of the miniseries, Many Foes of Spider-Man or something like that. Just for me to own a CGC comic, because it was going to be a Spider-Man anyway. And it's like I don't recall what I paid for it, but it was like whatever was the lowest price that you could get. Plus, I didn't care if it was a 9. It wasn't. It was probably like a 5 point something, just because, hey, look, I own a CGC thing just to see what it looks like.
Right. But that's why I wanted one too. Yeah. Just to have. And what's funny? I was writing a blog this week about me buying this. And I said to myself, and it's not a comic I see on. Because I had this one I was looking at it for like 3 months before I finally bought it. And I was looking for this issue sort of un-CGC too, unslit. I was like, how common is it? And I never really saw it. I may have seen, you can get the full set for $100. And I'm like, and I said to myself, I was writing the blog, I'm like, how much does the individual issue unslabbed go for? Because I don't remember seeing it when I was looking for this one. So I looked it up on eBay, of course, and saw somebody was selling this and the sketch version of this. So I was like, okay, well, and this is my advice for anybody buying anything on eBay that is in low demand. I do this. I bought a bunch of Tommy Hilfiger shirts from the 90s recently on eBay, used shirts you can get for dirt cheap. So for stuff like that and for stuff like this, like for low demand stuff, you put it on your watch list. You don't make a bid. You don't make an offer. You just put it on your watch list. I mean, if you want to make an offer if it has make an offer. But even if it doesn't, put it on your watch list. And quite often, whoever the seller is will come back with an offer just because nobody puts it on their watch list. So I put the unslabbed version of this and the sketch version of this too. I was like, oh, there it is. There's the price. I think it was like $15 plus $5 shipping or something. So $20 for the 2 issues. So like there. So I was like, I'll write this in my blog, and I put it on my watch list too. And like a few hours later, the guy came back with an offer for like $10 for the two of them. And I was like, $15 with shipping? All right, I'll get it. So now I have this coming. I not only have the original first printing of this that I bought, I now have this exact comic and the sketch version, which is just this kind of version without color, coming to. So now I'll have like the most extensive collection of various clone number ones of anyone. Oh yeah, my whole collection is filled with comics that hardly anybody else wants.
And you're going to trigger an algorithm that's going to raise the price of that book somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start that.
Be on the lookout for that comic. Beat the Jared effect. The Jared kayfabe effect.
Clone number one, the 5th anniversary edition. Oh, I also finally got a copy. Well, I don't have a copy yet. I think I bought it like yesterday or whatever. You know, I got the original art from Bunny number 11, and I was looking for a copy of Bunny number 11 because I don't have the comic, and I want to see what colors Mary Boppers, the bad space lady, is. And there was one copy up that was too expensive. Here's another strange story that I don't get from eBayers. After I got those pages, I remember I talked about it here, I looked for a copy of the physical comic to have because I've got the original art from it. And the guy had, I think it was like $25 plus $10 shipping for the comic. And I went, that seems a little, and I saw other copies sold for $15 to $25, depending on condition. So, but he had make an offer there. So I sent him an offer of, I think he had 25 on the price. I sent him an offer of 15. He just declined the offer. He didn't even come back with a counter offer. And I'm like, well, why would you make an offer if you done? Okay, whatever. And then he kept re-upping the auction every week after week. I've been watching it, and it's finally down to now the starting price was $18. But in the meantime, at the same time, another guy must have been looking at his auction because he put his copy up for $18, plus like $5 shipping or something like that. And once again, I saw it in his copy, the cover, and the guy who had it for $25 had it rated at a VG, very good. No, his was a fine, pardon me. And the guy who had it for his new one with $18 had it rated as a VG, a 4.0. Looking at the scans, at least the cover, the VG looks better than the fine. So the new guy, I was like, okay, I'll put this on my watch list. I put it on my watch list. The end of the day, he sent me an offer for $15, which was the offer I sent to that other guy a month ago. So I was like, all right, I'll get this one. So now I have a Bunny number 11 coming in the mail so I can finally see what color Mary Boppers is, what her costume color is. Do you have any CGC comics, Chris? Has anyone ever given you a CGC of like one of your own comics?
Yeah.
I figure that's the only way you're getting it.
Yeah. Image sent me a Walking Dead variant that I did.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. But Image sent it to you? That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Image on behalf of Skybound, on behalf of Robert. I'm not sure.
You're not sure exactly what person over there said, "Hey, we should send Chris one of these."
I think Branwen. I think Branwen's message with it was, "Yeah, we had this here. We're not sure why, but so we just figured we send it to you."
Well, at least Brandon was thinking of you.
Yeah. But she's not there anymore.
She's not there anymore?
No, she left 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago.
Oh wow! Yeah, time flies.
Whenever they moved to Portland, she didn't go with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, we're talking about. She did the books for. She did some sort of financial. She did the accounting for.
She was the accountant.
She doesn't look like an accountant because she's an old punk rock. Well, I shouldn't say old, but she's she must be in her 40s now. She's probably 10 years younger than me. And I'm in my 50s. But she was a punk rocker. And she still looks like a punk rocker.
I think she just turned 50.
But she's got a great comic book name too. Branwyn Bigglestone is her name. So there you can find
Sounds
it
like she's
in Image Comics in the list of Image Comics 5 years ago, we guess. But
sounds like a Middle Earth name.
Sounds like it's a little too long for a Stan Lee name. Is what it's got too many syllables for Stan Lee's alliteration.
Yeah, that's the number one reason for their lifelong feud between them.
You missed us last week when for the first hour and a half of the show, I was pointing out what a jerk Roy Thomas was in his own editorial.
Well, I mean, you didn't only do that at the beginning of the show because I caught a huge portion of it.
Oh, I think we did. We recap. Well, I think we may have recapped at the end. Well, it was an hour and a half at the beginning of the show. That's half the show.
We did take a while analyzing everything.
I think I just came in mid. I think I just came in halfway. You just hadn't stopped yet.
Yeah, we just had. Yeah, it went on for a long. I was like, holy cow. Oh, that's right. You were there for that. You had some of my favorite line. Let's see. What did Chris say? That was my favorite. Yes.
Well, last week was when I put Wilson on blast, as everybody famously remembered.
Yeah. Yes, they're the only two people who read Fantastic Four #1 and counted the cows.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't #1. It was 2 probably, right? The Skrulls were in issue 2.
Right. Yeah. Right. They're the only two. I think your next buy should be variant copies of the first appearance of Spider-Boy. My shop teased me that I was the only one who didn't request one. Oh, that was the hot book, 2 weeks ago? You're the only one who won't get rich, Gore. We're getting the 1990s amalgam Spider-Boy. That's what we're investing our CGC dollars in. The real Spider-Boy.
That's right.
I might have a Spider-Boy right here.
Uh-oh. The new one or the old one? Classic Spider-Boy?
The classic Spider-Boy. But now I'm remembering it's in a box at home. But I had big plans to put a sketch cover on it.
I have the Spider-Boy team up with art by Ladron, and featuring the first appearance of the Legion of Galactic Guardians 2099. They did mashups of the Legion of Superheroes and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mashup.
Yeah, and Mon-El becomes Mig-El because is a mashup of Mon-El and Spider-Man 2099.
Classic comics.
I need to pull out this again for a Neil Adams quote because I don't know if you probably didn't notice because I didn't actually argue with him. Facts, Damien. I actually managed to get Robert Birnbaum mad at me this week on that group Paulo invited me to, what was the name of that the comic historians group?
Yeah, one of the two. So, what is it? The People's History of Comics or the Comic Book Historians?
I think it's the People's History of Comics. I think that's
right.
It. But anyway, there was a post someone put on, and I actually didn't argue. I just wrote one comment, and he commented back, pissy with me a little bit. And I was like, don't argue with strangers on the internet. As much as I want to, there's no point. But he said something along because the post was about Siegel and Schuster, the two guys who created Superman, and Robert replied to it. He said, I've seen proof that Siegel and Schuster each made $1 million between 1939 and 1947. And I said, and he said he's interviewed Irvin Donefeld. And he said, I think that if they hadn't sued Irvin Donefeld, he would have taken care of them just like he took care of Bob Kane. And I of course, answered, well, what proof did you see? I mean, you can't tell me you saw proof and then not tell me what the proof is. And then I said, what proof could you possibly have that he would have taken care of him? Because he didn't take care of anyone else. It's not like, and he wrote back, if you want to you believe, I don't care what you believe, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right. But I was like, I think my line was the idea that they would have been taken care of if they were just good little freelancers doesn't jibe with comics history.
Hello.
And here he is, a comics historian, and I was just like, I think he was captured by Irvin Donefeld.
Bierbaum has he has his own interpretations of some things, and he won't budge from them.
Yeah,
you can't have a straight conversation on Stan and Jack with him, right? And he has other weird ideas coming from it that he got from his investigation on the history of comics distribution.
But because like I have like 3 hours of audio, 7 hours of audio tape, and 3 hours of videotape.
I'm gonna duck out and I'll come back.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. We'll talk to you when you come back. And I was like, well, if you have the audio
that they made
tape,
money.
Tell us what I believe they made money. No doubt about that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But would they have taken care of? We don't know. Yeah, you can't say that. We don't know that.
Yeah. And I got to say, the history of comics isn't on the side of they would have been taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, the Bob Kane and Bill Marston, they had contracts regarding ownership and profit of Batman and Wonder Woman.
And once again, that's because they were blue bloods, just like the owners of they were not Jewish kids from the Lower East Side.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, here's the Neil Adams quote I want to. He's talking about this very situation, and he's talking about him helping out Siegel and Schuster, and he says something like, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster signed a contract, but when I got in, talking about Neil Adams breaking into the comic business, people didn't even have contracts. They were ready to go out of business. They had this statement on the back of checks that says, "We own everything." I went to a lawyer and he said, "That's not a contract. Just write under protest under it or cross it out." Well, where's the? It was right before that. Pardon me, is the part I want. He's talking about early people. He's talking about how early comic book people were grabbing for every little piece of shit they could get because it was all when Neil Adams went into comics, it was all a mess. They didn't even have contracts. They had contracts, and says Neil uses air quotes. So that's what it was then. They didn't. Comic book people didn't have contracts. They had contracts. I mean, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby had a contract for Captain America. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Yeah. It didn't do him any good.
If Todd McFarlane had been connected if Todd McFarlane had been connected with mob distribution in the 1930s, his checks would say, "This is a love check. I bet you feel love right now. I own everything anyway."
That was the other line from Bob Beerborn in that particular thing he wrote back to me. He said, after being sued, Donenfeld no longer felt any obligation towards them. And I was like, if you got to depend on the feelings of the bosses, then you're going to go broke. I can understand them soon, because depending on the largesse, the good feelings of whoever the bosses were at the time, is not a way to have any kind of security.
And here's another thing:
over and over and over.
Beerbohm interviewed Erwin Donenfeld in the 1980s. That's after all the hubbub with the Superman movie. Mm-hmm. And he, of course, was trying to defend his father's memory.
Right.
So yeah, no sane mind should believe the assertion that they would have been taken care of. They were only taken care of right before the movie because Warner didn't want bad publicity around it.
Right. Neil Adams made a hubbub. Sleepy Reader says, Roy Thomas would have taken care of Neil Adams if only he'd behaved himself. I have proof.
Yes.
Winky face.
Yeah. And Stan assured Jack that Martin Goodman would take care of him. Eventually.
Right.
We have proof of that.
How many stories have we heard of people in comics being promised to be taken care of?
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as they feel no obligation to you, if only they hadn't sued, he would have felt that obligation for the rest.
Yeah.
What about when he left? Would the next guy feel that obligation?
Yeah. Those love checks would just keep coming.
Yeah. Got love checks for the rest of his life. That's what would have happened.
This love check is not worth the paper it's printed on.
But I found that in...
No, the back of this love check is not worth the paper it's printed on.
They didn't have contracts. They had contracts. But yeah, I couldn't believe. I was like, really? I was like, I can't. Sometimes I have it hard to believe that anybody has faith that some big boss will pay you. It's like, have you learned no lessons of the last 50 years?
Mm-hmm.
Trickle down economics doesn't work.
Especially with people associated with the mafia.
Yeah. If they don't have to give you money, they're not giving you money. That's the way it works. Let's see. Another thing I got this week was Rogue Sun. Didn't Wilson say he has some comics?
I did.
Rogue Sun number 12?
I have a pull box now.
Oh, that's right. You have a pull box. Let's see what you got. Rogue Sun number 12 was good. The Massive Verse, the superhero story continues. There's now like a Captain Marvel thing going on with the superheroes switching identities and one going off into the negative zone. I was like, ooh.
So for my pull list,
I
have Amazing Spider-Man 24.
Bagged and boarded.
Midtown Comics bad supports your books. When you have
when they're in the pull box, they bag and board them.
Yes. And then Superman number 3.
Ooh.
I can't do any reviews yet because I haven't read them yet. So those were on the pull box. Then the books that I picked up while I was there, which a lot of these are on the pull box, but by the time I did the subscription, these books are already out. And these are like
so the next issue will be on the pull list.
Correct. So I have Ninja Turtles. You saw the old
yeah. Wraparound cover.
Love a crossover.
Yep. I love Stan Sakai, so I'm getting anything he does.
Black Demon Tales. I got it because
I don't recognize
a giant shark on the cover.
Who is that by? Rodriguez
I do not know the company. Scout Comics.
Okay.
So issue 1 by Scout Comics. And it's because it's just a giant shark in it. So I figured, why not?
I understand that.
Clobbering Time.
Oh, cool. A new Thing comic.
So the Thing comic with the Hulk kind of reminds me of that graphic novel that came out years ago by Bernie Wrightson.
Hooky? Was that it?
Hooky was a Spider-Man book. The Thing Hulk book, the name escapes me right now, but there was a Thing Hulk crossover that I found beautiful, and it was like a buddy cop, not cop, a buddy superhero story. So that's why I picked this up, because it kind of reminded me of that. And I figured, I always enjoyed the Thing when he had a solo book. That's why I picked it up to see what it was like. Savage Dragon, because it's been years. I picked up a Savage Dragon book.
Special Nut Punch cover.
Yep, Nut Punch cover. So I was like, all right, let me revisit the Savage Dragon world. And
Sleepy Reader says Steve Scroce is doing Clobbering Time. Cool, he's good.
Yes. And then Scott Koblish's Kaiju book, Cockju. And again, giant monsters, Kaiju books. I have to give it a try.
You will see giant monster penis in that book too. That it'll live up to its title.
I didn't know I was missing that from my life, so I'm looking forward to that. And those are the books. And I think Clobbering Time, Savage Dragon, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover books. These are all on my pull list now. I'm sure the Cockju is also on my pull list, because when you mentioned it last week, I think it was, I went right on to it, put it on my pull list, and then once I figure out if this is any good, it may or may not go on my pull list.
Right.
And then of course the newest. Or I don't know if it's the newest, but I grabbed it. The Comic Shop News is available.
Yep.
The Joe Madureira cover. So
wow!
Like coming back to comics for Battle Chaser, issue number 10.
I just watched a video on that. As a matter of fact, I forget. I haven't seen him on YouTube in a while, but he makes videos. He just made a "Who Are the Battle Chasers" video. So I learned who the Battle Chasers were. Because I never really knew
what the Battle Chasers were. Because I know I did pick up the books way back when.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever meet him?
I don't believe I ever met him face to face. I've only ever dealt with him over the phone with art returns.
Because he was an intern at Marvel. He used to sit next to me when he was 16. He was a high school intern.
Yeah.
He was the only. Because we worked at Marvel. You see a lot of talented people come through there. He was the only one I ever saw Bob Harris take an interest in. Like, he was, like, at 16, he was showing some pages around, and they were pretty good. I mean, I'm not telling you they were the best pages ever, but I had seen other talented people go through. But for some reason, Bob Harris liked him and was like, hey, come on. And I can remember when he was trying to figure out if he should go to college or or maybe try to draw comics. And we were all like, go to college. Who knows if you're going to get any work? But Bob Harris gave him work right away. He didn't go to college.
I've read his first work, the Marvel Comics Presents story with North Star. It was published as a filler here in the mid-90s. It's not bad. For Marvel Comics Presents, it's pretty good. Figures are a little stiff, so it's not the Joe Madureira yet.
Right.
But it showed potential.
Right, but to this day, I saw a lot of people who showed potential. To this day, I still wonder why. It's kind of like, why did he catch Bob Harris's eye? Why was he? Why did Bob Harris like his stuff so much? I have no idea. But just one of those things. But yeah, he was 16.
I came in about a year after because as an intern, we all heard about the legend of Joe Madureira being the one sitting in the bullpen and gets discovered in the bullpen. And
a high school the only one.
The only one. And the weird thing is that there was a rumor that went through Marvel that if you're discovered as an intern, if you come in, the way you get in Marvel, once they figured out how you got in, they closed that window. They closed that crack. That almost everyone who broke into Marvel would be the term that we use.
Right.
You got in, that's the way you broke in, that's the way you're working in comics, that crack will be closed. And no one else gets discovered that way. It was just like a weird thing that, again, weird comic book rumors. It's like, well, I was the only, as far as I was aware of, I was the only paid intern.
Yeah.
And that was just because of the way they negotiated, and by they, my bosses negotiated me to get paid during the summer. Because during the school year, I got college credit. But then I graduated. But they weren't going to give me a job yet. I'm still an intern. So they found money to pay me for the summer working at Cavern. So I was the only ever paid intern there because I never heard of anyone else getting paid afterwards. And it was just like the way they found the money was, the way they explained it to me, the money came from the fund that the president of the company would have if he needed to hire his neighbor's kid for the summer. That's where the money came from.
I'm not sure what Sleepy seems like a slap in the face. The closing the door behind. But yeah, to this day, it still amazes me that Joe Madureira was discovered in the bullpen. Like, there are people in the bullpen who went on to do, stuff. Especially Romita's Raiders weren't really the bullpen, so they were supposed to go on and do stuff, but still no one as big as Joe Madureira. I mean, like Sergio Corello was in the bullpen for a while, but he had to work hard to get work from Marvel and DC, and still nobody really knows who Sergio is. Same with Paul Azaceta. He was in the bullpen with us. He's been drawing comics for quite a few years now, but artists aren't stars anymore, so nobody knows who Paul Azaceta is either. But Joe Madureira is sitting there as an intern in the bullpen, high school intern, even not even a college intern, high school intern.
Yeah, he was 16.
Yeah, catches Bob Harris's eye somehow, and he says, "Hey, I can turn this guy into an X-Men artist," and does. Wow, that's the only time I ever saw that happen.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I get at my comic shop? Issue 2 of No One. This is the one that also takes place in the Massive Verse, which is the same universe as Rogue Sun and Radiant Black and Radiant Pink and Radiant Red. This one's mostly a police procedural, and it's pretty well done. Who's doing it? The writers are Kyle Higgins and Brian Buccellato, who is Steve's... I don't know if you knew him. I think he was before your time at Marvel. He's a colorist, Steve Buccellato. The artist is Geraldo Borges. Colorist is Mark Englert. Hassan Atsami Elahau is the letterer. But good stuff. Nice art, nicely done. I've been enjoying. Like, the first issue was one of those I complained about. I liked it better the second time through because some of the storytelling didn't make sense until the end of the comic. And then you're like, oh, that's what that scene means. There was none of that in this one because all that was set up in issue 1. But there's this guy who's I don't know if he's got superpowers or not, but he's some sort of vigilante who's killing rich criminals. Or people who are rich who he says are criminals. And everybody thinks this assistant police commissioner's son is the killer, but he's already in jail for being the killer, and this guy's still out there killing. And the father thinks he did it too, the assistant commissioner. So it's a lot of police procedural stuff, but well done. I'm not sure what the superhero angle is yet, because there really hasn't been one, except this guy's ability to escape the police, and he's in a cape with a mask. But it's not like he's shooting blasts or throwing cars or anything, so I'm not 100% sure. And here's another thing I got at my shop. A little ad for Catastrophic Con. And if you saw my what I bought this week, down the bottom, we have a little Section 8 comics. And I was going, I know who Section 8 is. One of my friends, I know who Section 8 comics, but I couldn't remember who. It's Wilson. So Wilson will be appearing at this con July 15th, Reed Castle, Purchase, New York, which I went to college at SUNY Purchase, but this is actually on the campus of Manhattanville College. SUNY Purchase and Manhattanville College are like down the road from each other. There's another small college there. So, and Reed Castle, I looked it up, is one of the buildings in Manhattanville. So you'll be going to Manhattanville College to do this con. And it's like a horror, rock and roll comic book con. Live music, guests, comic books.
People that put it together usually put together like music shows and festivals. So that's stepping into doing collectibles and comic stuff. That is also the first time I've seen the flyer. So I haven't saw the flyer. So when you were talking about it, it was like, when is that show happening? Because I know the next show that I'm doing wasn't going to be for a couple of months anyway. I mean, it's smart that they're putting out the flyers now. But when you talk about it, like, wait, when am I doing that show?
I might go over there and see you in it. It's not too far. It's about
everyone's more than welcome to show up.
Yeah, it's like a 40-minute drive from here, just over the TZ Bridge. Like I said, where I used to go to college. But like they were trying to get my LCS to take a table there, and they're just like, we really don't have anything to sell at a rock and roll con.
Sell comic books.
Yeah. They didn't have any comic books. They didn't think they had comic books that anybody would be interested in at Rock and Roll Con. I guess. But like, and I think that there's even going to be a concert at night, I think.
Let's see if I have any copies of that Alex Cooper comic book that we did with Marvel Music back in the day.
Ah, yes. Mort Todd and Marvel Music. I still have some Marvel Music paper. The Blue Line original art Bristol. I have some sheets, a few sheets of it in there.
Left. I might have some of that paper as well.
Because they were giving it away one day when there was no more Marvel Music. I said, all right, I'll take some. They should have more Todd there. Tell them to call him. I think he's up in Maine, right? Is he in Maine or Massachusetts or somewhere?
I think so, because he's doing his own imprint up there. It's been a while since I saw him post something. But yeah, he was doing his own book for a while.
Charlton Arrow. He bought a lot of stats from Charlton that he colored and printed himself, sort of the public domain stuff. Because there's somebody who still owns a lot of the Charlton IP, but a lot of it is also in the public domain. And when, like at one point, I don't know when, in the 90s or something, there was an auction of the Charlton IP and materials. So he bought a whole bunch of stats of Charlton original artwork. So over the years, he scanned them in and colored them. I have a couple of his books, but I haven't seen, he was doing Kickstarters, I don't know, 5-8 years ago.
Was it that long ago?
Wow. Yeah, it was that long ago.
Time flies.
Yeah, it does. It's crazy. Speaking of time, the other comic I got this week is Time Before Time, issue number 22. This series is just flying under the radar and is a fun series. It's about time travel and time gangsters and people running from the gangsters. And some people built a city that many years ago, 4,688,600,000. And because the human world at some point ends because robots take it over. So before that happened, these people went 6 billion years in the past and they hate robots. And one of our lead characters picks up, and robots can't time travel either. That's why they went to the past. So now a robot who's been hanging out with two of our main characters for the last 10 issues or so, who for some reason is unique and can time travel, ended up in this past, and they want to kill him. So he's running from them. And then some character who was like a throwaway character early on, he showed up at the end of the last issue, and I was like, I don't even know who that guy is. He's this guy who's like he's this half cyborg character now. Let me see if I can get a better shot of him. But he showed up at the end of last issue. I didn't even know who he was. Then, of course, they explained who he was. And I was like, oh, that guy. But he's been going through time. Where is he? There he is at the end. Turning him, since he doesn't want to die, turning himself into this machine. And according to him, this city that's 6 billion years old has messed up everything in the future. So he's now going back in time to destroy the city, so it doesn't destroy the future. And the robots even like, this city can't destroy the future. We've already found out, because in this story, their rules are you can't change time. So if you go back in time, you can't change time. There's only one timeline. So if this city destroyed the future, it's already happened. There's nothing this robot can do. But he's going to try. So it's been a really fun series that like no one is reading. But I've liked it.
What issue number are they up to?
22. And they're all in trade now, too. Do you guys note certain letterers you like in modern comics, or do they all blur together in the digital age? No, if I like the lettering, I check back and see who did it. Usually I'm like, wow, this lettering is really good, and I look back and see who did it. So I do notice lettering. And if the lettering is terrible, I look back and check and see who did it, too. So lettering in between, I don't really notice.
As a letterer, I do pay attention to lettering. And there have been times where I'll look at a book and I can't read it because the lettering is so bad.
Right.
And sometimes you just can't help but look at it. Or I'll find an old book that I lettered and cringe at it, seeing all the mistakes that I did.
Gotta give that young guy a break. He was doing the best he could.
Yep. It's like at that time I didn't know any better. So yep. I from that lesson that you were talking about, is that I do forgive it. But so I look at it, I try to look at it with a better eye and go, oh, I stopped doing that particular.
I can do that better now.
Yeah. So I see that type of stuff now too. Is I'll go and it's like, why did I used to do it that way? That seems easier than the way I'm doing it now. So I do pay attention to the letterers because sometimes I'll get ideas from them as well. It's like, the idea that I'm doing.
Which way do you do your tails? The layers way or the pathway? There's some pathway that people use now.
I now do it the layers way.
Did you used to do it?
I used to do it the pathway.
Okay.
So I used to do it
because both ways you can. I've never. Why do you do it the layers way now? Most people I hear go the other way.
Because I was given a project to post another letterer, and I was given his templates, and I wanted to match up what they were doing. Okay. And there were little nuances that it feels like it's faster doing it the layered way. Because now I don't have to stop and do the path. So it saved me an extra push of a button. So it probably saved me a couple of seconds per page. Mount that up. And it's with the layered way is a bit more forgiving and making a quick change.
Okay.
Where once you put it with the path and you have to fix it later, you kind of have to almost in a sense redo the balloon.
No, there's a new way with the path, I think, where you don't have to do that. I don't know what it is though.
Okay. Then I have not discovered that yet.
I think Nate Picos may have something on it showing. Maybe it's in his book.
I haven't. I haven't got to that page yet.
Okay. People have no idea what we're talking about now.
Completely.
That's cool.
I'm not sure where the book is right now, but I did get the book recently only because I had a client who I inherited their lettering work from.
Right.
And they were doing it with the layers, and they learned it from Pete before the book was made.
Right.
So they learned something from Pete. So I started following that direction only because I was using someone else's template.
Right.
And I found, again, with the layers, there are some stuff from it. What I don't like about the layers is, or the portion of the layers I'm currently using, is when you blow up the balloon and shrink the balloon, you get a variation of the thickness of the black line around the balloon.
That is in your scale tool. If you double click on your scale tool, there's a little checkbox that says scale, stroke, and effects. Click that off, and your stroke will stay the same size. That's just a click box that's buried in Illustrator.
Thank you, because I'm currently lettering while we're working. That's why we're doing the show. That's why I keep looking.
Double click on the scale tool in the toolbar itself. Do you see it?
No. This must be thrilling video for everybody.
Paolo's going to sleep now. He's tired of us talking about lettering.
But again, it's one of those things, like when I look at the older stuff, my balloons used to be fully round. Now I have them more in the television set, the old school television set. You can have it either round or you can have it as football.
Let me show everyone what I mean. Let me present my screen. Let's go to window. Where is... I don't have it in this one. Hold on. I think I got to move. I've got to move. I have many desktops here. And Illustrator is not in the same desktop as my browser. Let's see what hot corner. Oh, my hot corners aren't on. Oh man, I can't show you. This is annoying. Yeah, let's see. Can I move it down here? Move to recent files, scripts, options. Sign to... there we go. I think I got it. No. Oh, well, I can't show you because Illustrator won't move to another desktop. But all it is, you double click on your scale tool and you'll see scale, stroke, and effects. You click it off, your stroke will stay the same size. How common is ghosting for other people's lettering?
Well, ghosting is probably the wrong term. What it was is that the letterer who was doing it,
You were matching style?
had to leave the project, so I was matching his style, not necessarily ghosting. And most of the time when you get a new book, no one notices the change in the letter. There are things like something like for paper cuts, I do lettering of a Nickelodeon book, so they give us the typeface, the size, the way the balloon should look, kind of like the book is matched on a licensed product. On other comic books, sometimes I may jump in on issue number 2 because the letterer could not finish up the project, and I may not be staying. So I'll still get credited as the letterer, but I try to match up what the letterer was doing. So ghosting is the incorrect word. But ghosting, I might have done ghosting for inkers, where I might have been doing the background for them, and I try to match their style. But it depends on the project. It's not often, but sometimes you may be asked to do something that matches another artist.
One last comic I got this week is magazine size. The Forged, issue number 2. Woo! Greg Rucka Troutman is the artist. Henderson, Woodard, and Mayer. This is the one I bought the first issue. Once again, it was a first issue that the first time through I was a little confused. Second time through, I liked it better. But this issue was all action because a lot of the first issue was set up for this world, which takes place with this sort of galaxy-spanning civilization that has like this queen who's got superpowers, and she's got clones of herself that are like these mystics who go out. And the Forged are this group of, they're all female. They have these mech suits. They're like, they're like the military team in these mech suits. And they're going down to recover a probe from a world. But at the end of last issue, when they went down to recover the probe, the big old spaceship they were on got blown up. And they were like, it would take a fleet to take down that spaceship. So this whole issue is about them trying to figure out what's going on in this world and trying to survive. Because, the spaceship is actually falling down on top of them. So they got to get out from under that spaceship. They got to run. Turns out they weren't told the truth about this mission. And it also turns out that this world has some alien life form monsters that are after them. So this whole issue was all action. It was a lot of fun. It's about, I think it was 44 pages of comic, $6 magazine size, and then they've got lots of pages in the back of like world building stuff. If you like this kind of back matter, world building back matter, it's got that too. I'm not a huge fan of the world building back matter, but I'm okay with not reading it. Though the one thing that kills me is, of course, futuristic sci-fi world. They've got their own version of Alexa, Siri, whoever, and its acronym is EVIL, EVIL. I'm like, who names their computer companion or whatever it is evil? That seems like a bad idea. You don't want to name your AI evil. But good book.
You kind of asking for problems.
Yeah, I'm expecting something bad to happen with it. You name it Hal. Nice friendly name. Nothing bad will happen.
Not at all. Or you name your new internet system Skynet. We connect everything together.
Through the sky. That's fine. Nothing can go wrong. If you name it evil.
Yeah.
Name it evil, you're just asking for trouble. Let's see, what facsimile edition did I order? I just remember all of a sudden I got my final order cutoff email earlier today, which sometimes comes on Saturday, sometimes Friday night, sometimes Sunday. but you have to have the orders in by Monday. And there was just Iron Man #1 is the latest facsimile edition from Marvel. There's a Warlock one coming out, Jim Starlin Warlock one coming out next week. But I was like, Iron Man #1. I don't think they have that facsimile. Because they're starting to reprint some of the facsimiles they've already reprinted. So I'm like, I have to keep track now.
Yeah, so Iron Man #1. I don't recall
The
if they did that one
1968 version.
They did.
No, I don't think they've had one of those yet. But then again, I bought 2 Avengers #1s. So, but the first printing of the facsimile was 2018. It turned out. That's why I didn't remember having it.
Oh, okay.
But I think they put out another one of X-Men #1, which I looked up and saw I had. So I was like, I think that came out like last week. I'm like, I don't need another X-Men #1.
Right.
One facsimile is good enough. Thank you. Though I remember when I printed out a bunch of my own, what was it? Edmer had Herb Trimpe do another version of Hulk 181. So this is, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago now. He commissioned Herb Trimpe to do a Hulk one. I did all the logos and stuff on the book, printed them out right on a piece of Bristol, and then Herb drew a new Hulk 181 cover. So when they came out with the dollar version, the True Believers Hulk 181, I colored Herb Trimpe's color, printed it out, and bound it into some True Believers. Sold a few of them on eBay, but just for the heck of it, just because I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But and I did that with some of the other True Believers stuff. I'd make my own version of. I think I did it with Spider-Man #1. Drew my own Spider-Man #1 cover, put it on there, sold a few copies on eBay. It was a fun little project. I think Sleepy Reader bought one of the Spider-Man ones off eBay. But so I remember buying multiple versions of the dollar comics, but not the $4 or $5 one, whatever they are now, $4 ones.
Right.
Price goes up pretty quickly.
Yeah. For
4 times as quickly. 4 times as quickly, some might say. Read any good comics this week, Paolo?
No.
I got a free graphic novel this week from, who was it? It was an ad. Where is it? Black Panel Press. I think they're bringing European graphic albums to the U.S. And I saw an ad on Instagram where they're like, send us your email address and we'll send you a free digital graphic novel. I guess they're collecting email addresses. Why not?
Like what press?
Black Panel Press. So
Black
they sent me, where is it? Something called Illegal Cargo.
Illegal Cargo?
Illegal Cargo. Let's see. I never even opened it. Oh, that's Illegal Cargo. Let's see who did it. I'll open it over there. Like I said, it's a PDF. I heard an interview with Al Milgrom where Rich Buckler was having him and other young artists ghost on his assignments. Yes. And Marwed Serial heard a woman at a con claiming she'd ghosted some script.
He means Matt Wednesday Serial.
Wednesday Serial. There we go. Matt Wednesday Serial for Brian Michael Bendis. Wow, I believe that.
Huh. Was it Kelly?
I was just looking at that Spider-Man cover yesterday. It still looks good, Jared. Glad you like it. So let's see who did this one. It's Augusto Mora.
Hi, he's Spanish.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So that's the free one they sent me.
Illegal cargo. It's around. I may have. Augusto Mora. Oh, it's not Spanish. There's a guy called More in Spain, but it's not him. El Salvador. Written by and illustrated by Mexico City-based comic artist. Okay, so it looks in Mexico.
Mexico. Yeah, but that's black panel. So if you want a free graphic novel, you fill out a little survey of what kind of comics you like, and who knows if they pay attention to it, but they might send everyone illegal cargo. I don't know.
Most of these don't look like much. On top, I don't know, but yeah, most of these don't look like much.
For free,
maybe The Man in the Painter's Room. Jameson O'Donnell. Yeah, I don't know if any of these are.
I was like, I'll take a free comic. Why not?
Sure.
They can have my email address, and I'll send. I actually what was it? I'm remembering this because this Craig Thompson's Ginseng Roots. I'm on because I went there. I signed up for their newsletter. Uncivilized is the name of the Uncivilized Books or something like that. Yeah, uncivilizedbooks.com. I'm waiting to see if they come up with a collector edition of this when it finally finishes, and I'll get it. But I ended up ordering one of their future comics. I don't even remember what comic it is. It was they sent me an email and they were like, I think it's a 3-issue series of something by someone. This is what happens when you buy comics for the future and 6 months that aren't coming out for 6 months. You don't remember what they were. But they were like, if you buy all 3 issues of this now, you get free shipping, and we send you these special covers. And I'm like, you know what? For whatever it was, $25, because I think these are like $6 comics. I was like, you know what? I'll buy them all now and see how this works out. See how, how they ship them, see how they come. So I got yes, these are $6 comics. So I got a subscription to some series that's coming out from Uncivilized Books that I don't even remember what it is, but it'll be cool to get in the mail. Tomorrow I'll be finished with Elvis Chicken 2. Oh, cool. That is nice. That is good to finish things. Elvis Chicken 2 is King Spoets, Scott's comic, one of the comics he does. Mm-hmm. One of the crazy, zany comics he does. Elvis Chicken, number 2. Oh, and by the way, this Frank Giacoia page I was showing before with the corners cut. And it's from Captain America 257 in 1981. Mm-hmm. This was given to me. I've told the story before about the Spider-Man cover, the little box that John Romita drew in. For a friend at the comic shop who was like, "Oh, can you get John Romita to draw Spider-Man head in this box?" And he drew that whole figure. When I gave him that, he was like, "Oh." He gave me this because he was so happy to have that. He's like, "You want this page?" He's like, "For free, you can have it." I was like, "Sure." So that's why I have this Lee Elias Frank Giacoia page, because he liked that John Romita drawing so much. He was like, "You can have this page for getting me that."
Anything stamped on the back?
Yes. Copyright. And then wiped out of Cadence Industries Corporation, all rights reserved. And then there's pencils. Whoops, you can't even see. Written in blue line, it says P. Elias I. Giacoia. And I wrote Captain America 257, 1981 in pencil on the back, too, so in case someone can erase it if they want.
Right.
Because it's not original. But I wanted to know it. I often will write on the back where it came from if it's not on the front, because it was cut off,
right,
by the people who were making.
When I used to stamp, because I would stamp the copyright information on the back.
Right.
When I would get the artwork right before we turned it out for art return, and then I got into the habit after I stamped it, I would sign it so people would know I was the one who did the art returns for that particular. I would initial it in pencil, I believe, just so I have here's my mark that I touched this page.
I can remember. I've never seen one in the wild. There was a time. They were always coming up with new things in the bullpen for us that we had to do as part of some I don't know what. So there was a time in the bullpen when every page we pasted up, we had to put our initials in the bottom right-hand corner. Sometime in the 90s, before we went to, maybe for 6 months or a year, I don't even know. In pencil, in the bottom corner of the page, whoever pasted it up in the bullpen had to put their, I guess, to keep track of how much work people were getting done. But I can assure you, no one ever gathered up the page. Or I think it also might be who to blame if the balloons were falling off, so they could bring it back to fix them. That may have been it too. But I never saw anyone bring back a page to fix anyone. I never saw anyone get in trouble for not doing enough pages in a day. So it was but I don't know, I don't even remember how long it was, 6 months or a year, you could find JJO down the bottom of some pages. I've never seen one of those pages in the wild. If it was this page, it would have been cut off. But they didn't cut pages, I think, then.
Sometimes they were really good at implementing something that somebody decided on, and it just never went anywhere. With me, they gave me, I used to do the bundles. And for some reason, after a certain time, they wanted to know how many books we had in the cabinet. And it was why? Because it's basically whatever the books that are there, we're not going to change. Because I used to make sure we had 5 copies of every issue. Because eventually they would get bound. But if we needed loose copies, they were loose copies. And for some reason, at some point, I was told, how many books do we have in these cabinets? So I had to get my army of interns and have them count all the books. Because I had cabinets all over the place.
Right.
Because again, it wasn't my job. I was asked, hey, would you mind holding these keys? Because, at Marvel, we didn't really get promotions. We just got more keys, or at least I got more keys to hold. So that's how I was running the book room. So running the library. So we had this inventory of books. And then it was asked, okay, every week I would have to send up a new list of how many books we had sitting somewhere. And I would not get a response every time I would send the list. And then one
Good
day
job, aces, pat on the back.
Yeah.
No one opened it.
No, I don't know. I don't know if they opened it because at one point I sent the same email by mistake. I sent last week's list, and nobody questioned it. And then it was like, oh, let me send it again. The list. So then I went to Dan. Hey, Dan, I was asked to do this. I'm doing it every week. Is there anyone reading this? And he assured me, yes, someone's reading it. Okay. Then I just stopped sending the list. I was like,
no one noticed?
Never heard anything. A month later, I stopped. There was no reason to send this list. Because it was like, one, it was going to one of the high-ups that demanded this list.
Right.
And then only to find out later that this guy just didn't like me. And Dan told me, yeah, he didn't like you. So I was wasting time making this list for an idiot upstairs who just had nothing better to do than to ask me. And I should have known, because when he told me to count these books, send him a list, I told him there's a lot of books. And his reaction was, I didn't say it was going to be easy. And it was like, this has nothing to do with my job. It wasn't what
he
I
was
was
giving
hired.
You annoying busy work.
Yeah.
Just to annoy you.
Just to annoy me. I guess he wanted me to do it so I could quit instead of having them let me go. And I think that's what it was, because a bunch of little things I would see. And, you reflect on these things years later and go, yeah.
You're like,
that was an idiot move to do to me, because I guess they wanted me out. But they didn't want to, pay me what they paid me to leave. So, again, it's one of those things that I don't learn until later on TikTok about, what's quiet quitting and what's quiet firing and things like that they have terms for now, and go, oh, that's why,
That's what Marvel used to do historically. Was they didn't like to fire people; they'd promote them. That happened. I remember when that happened to Jim Salicrup, who was the Spider-Man editor. Big job at Marvel, making plenty of money on that Todd McFarlane stuff. Some point in the early 90s, I don't know, somebody didn't like him, so they promoted him to a new position where he had nothing to do. So eventually he quit. And that's what Marvel would do in those days. They'd promote you to a position that you had nothing to do, no responsibility, no future. And that would make people quit.
For me, they just kept giving me extra jobs, extra work.
Yep. That's what you do to low-level people. They're promoting you would make you stay. That's what they... To the higher-level people, they promote. The lower-level people, they just say, we'll put you in this back room here with the air conditioner and make you count nickels. While we throw dust at you.
It'll be funny.
Yeah. King Spoet's Elvis Chicken 2 is his autobiographical comic. I had forgotten that. I have Elvis Chicken 1 here somewhere. I don't know where it's Raiders of the Lost Ark right now. It's somewhere in one of my shelves. I think over there. Occasionally, occasionally I have to move comics because I have one section of shelf down over there that's comics I'm currently buying, and that's always expanding. But what happens sometimes is it expands to a place where there's no room on the shelf. So then I have to go, okay, what series have ended? And I pull them out, and I have to move them around. I have to put those in with series that have ended. where is it? Red Zone only has 4 issues. So it's in my live section. But what happens sometimes is when I move the comics, and I have like paper dividers between the series. But every now and then, a bag, of course, will stick to another bag. So I'll move this stack of comics from this series, and there'll be one from the next series stuck to the front or the back. And usually I'll notice. Sometimes I'm looking through my comics, and I'm like, where's the first issue? Where's the last issue? Oh, no. It got Raiders of the Lost Ark. It got moved with whatever series was next to it into a new spot, and I have no idea where. And occasionally I'll be, looking, either pulling out one of my, comic covers to put on top of my printer, or looking through to read an old series, and I'll find like a random issue of something that doesn't belong there. And I'm like, good thing I found this because I didn't know it was missing. Because that just happened, I think, with an issue of Monstrous. I had to move Monstrous. Because sometimes as the series get bigger and bigger and bigger, I'll find their own spot for them. Because Monstrous is up to like issue 55. So to have that in the live area takes up space for 55 issues. So I can move it, shuffle things around. And I was moving it, and I happened to notice, where's Monstrous like 54? Oh, it's over here, stuck to the last one of to the one in front of it. I'm like, I could have lost that issue real easily. Raider of the Lost Ark, warehousing it. See, Wilson doesn't have to worry about that because none of his comics are in order to begin with.
Not at all. It used to be in a wonderful order up till I started working at Marvel, and then I got everything for free. Because I got it for free, I felt obligated to take it home and read it all. And so I read all good, the bad. If you gave it to me as my comps, I read everything. And the Marvel books I read at least 3 times. I would read the because I was the one who would send the pages to the Comics Code. So I would read over. I'll read over the black and whites that we would send to the Comics Code. Then when I got the colored guides, I might actually read it over that way. And then the artwork. Don't really read the artwork, but I would just look through the artwork. So by the time I got my comps, I already knew what was going on in the book, and then I would give that a read, kind of a thing. So Marvel, the DC books and stuff like that, I did not get picky until I had to buy the books myself. Before that, trade paperbacks, Masterworks. With the Masterworks, I would sell on eBay. Anything that I would have that was like premium books that I already read those stories anyway. So those I would sell on eBay. But the other books, again, I read it all and then when I got home, they would just get put into boxes, into the diamond boxes, because you could get those everywhere at Marvel. So I would just put the books in the boxes that we got for shipping. And then, so a month's worth of books would be in this one box. And there was no order, but I wasn't really going through the boxes for anything. Now it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, like you said. Now it's basically what's in this box. And it's like, wow, I didn't know I had these or that. And the only time that it became a real pain was like, if I wanted to sell something on eBay and I knew I had it. Like first appearance of Hollywood. I thought I would have multiple copies of that. It's like, no, I only had the one. It took forever to find the one when I decided I'm going to finally sell this. And again, it was stuff like that. So now I've been going through the stuff and then kind of breaking it up between what's Marvel, what's DC. What is it I'm going to keep? And I want to make sets to sell them in a big chunk. Just get rid of them all at once. But there's always that one issue missing from that set. It's like, oh, here's a whole year's book. Here are 12 issues. And I might be missing issue 9. For some odd reason. And then I'll open up another box and find like 4 issues of issue 9. So it's fun, but also a little bit of.
Reminds me of years ago when I had this guy I knew, only a little bit. I said we had a mutual friend in common named Steve. And I said something like, "Oh yeah, Steve collects wrestling magazines." And he was like, "No, he doesn't." I'm like, "What do you mean? I see he's coming home with wrestling magazines all the time." He's like, "Steve doesn't have a collection of them. If you can't find anything, you don't have a collection. You have an accumulation." That always stuck with me. I'm like, that's true. You can't find anything. You don't have a collection. He accumulates wrestling magazines and just piles them up in the corner. He doesn't know what's in there, what anything is. Wilson's got an accumulation of comics. He's trying to turn it into a collection. That's an accumulation. That's why, like with my dice that I've a bin of dice back here. Let me show it to people who've never seen before.
Also an accumulation.
Whoops. There we go. I got 2 bins in here. These are all different dice. And every now and then I go, yeah, I've got a collection. No, it's really an accumulation of dice. They're not in any order. They're just in a bin. I can't call it a collection. Though there is a little rhyme and reason to it. The little bin has like 3 samples of each dice. Because if you ever go to my Instagram, Art by Osborne on Instagram, I make pictures of dice color compositions. Where I take like usually 8 dice and like line them up in color compositions on my hand. So I have to be able to easily find colors.
I always did wonder what you were doing with those dice. He was showing, and I think he's playing D&D. The dice that I own are various colors and therefore Dungeons and Dragons. And I only have a couple of sets. For my brother, he had a whole container full of it, but it is for that purpose of Dungeons and Dragons. But when I was noticing your dice, it's people collect what they collect. That was my rationale for it.
It actually started in the early 90s when me, Dave Sharp, who else used to go with us? Joe Coppensacco and maybe Thomas Velasquez, whoever. We used to go to the Complete Strategist at lunchtime. That's a gaming store in Manhattan. It's still there. Somewhere around 33rd Street. It was like a 10-minute walk from Marble. So, and we're all gamers. We get Magic cards or whatever there in the later years. So we used to just go, what do you want to do for lunch? Let's take a walk up to the Complete Strategist and look around. Maybe Dave would buy some D&D stuff, whatever. And one day you could buy individual dice. 6-sided, whatever. I like the 6-sided one. So one day I decided, because I also take pictures, I'm a photographer, I decided I wanted to try to make some still lives of little objects. And one of the little objects I decided to use were dice. So I must have bought 20 or 30 dice. Made my little still lives with them. It was cool. It was fun. But then over the years, I'd just buy more dice. I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll make another still life. Here's more colors. Oh, here's more stuff to add. Then somewhere probably around 10 years ago, I was just like, I want more dice. So in the last 10 years, I probably bought 300 or 400 6-sided dice of various colors. Just because, and then, like I said, I kept them. And then I started making color compositions with them just as I watched TV, just to pass the time. And then one day I was like, why don't I take a picture of these color compositions? Because I keep making them. Why not? And then like a month or 2 after that, I'm like, well, why don't I post some of these color compositions on my Instagram? And I've been doing it ever since. And I've gotten like more response from friends who are like, oh, I really like those dice pictures. And I'm like, I post my art all the time. You don't say a thing. I post pictures of dice and you like that. They're like, oh, I find it very calming. Like, okay.
You have to take a picture of yourself. You put the dice on your eyes, but with the ones out, so you can tell people I have snake eyes.
I'll have to do that for one of my selfie of the days, which I've been doing all this year on Facebook. I've been taking well, I shouldn't say one picture. I've been posting one selfie a day on Facebook so far for this entire year. But as anybody who knows about photography, you got to take 6 pictures to get one good one. Pile on the pictures. If you think you're going to get that picture in one take, you're wrong. I mean, it's easier in the world of digital because you can see what you're doing, but
True.
Not going to happen. Back in the film days, you take pictures and never know how they're going to come out. Like, I hope I got that.
Yeah.
Did you get that? I don't know.
It's going to be, and there's always going to be more blurred out for some reason.
You never know whose eyes are going to be closed.
Yep. Or red.
Red eye. Red eye is the bane of all pictures. There wasn't a Photoshop tool for that.
Nope. Not at all. And it's funny going through old pictures and finding a bunch of red eyes.
And it's funny, like, I've been taking street photos now for, I don't know, decade and a half, 2 decades. And I could have never done it before digital. It's like when I go into school, I walk from Penn Station, 34th Street, down to Pratt on 14th Street. And I take street photos as I walk. Just that I've been doing since I've been back. Usually I'd go down in the summer and take them at Bryant Park, but I haven't done that since COVID. I'm going to have to do that this summer. But it's like I can take 800 pictures. Just shooting burst mode, walking for half an hour. I can shoot 800 pictures easy because I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just going click. Yep. That would cost me hundreds of dollars with film. I could never do that. Like, digital has changed everything.
It completely has. I've taken more photos on my phone than I had ever on any of my cameras. And
that's because it's with you.
Because it's with you all the time. And and you don't have to be as choosy. You can experiment.
Yeah.
With your phone and stuff like that. I used to take pictures.
It used to be like I was one of the people who camera to camera with me all the time through the 90s. And you'd have to say to yourself, oh, do I want to take a picture now? Because you had, 24 exposures. It wasn't just like you could just go click, 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 click. Yeah, I say, okay, I think this is picture worthy. Let's get enough light, there's enough this, and then use a flash. Getting a good picture wasn't easy. I was a film guy. So was I at one point when there was the only choice. As soon as I could go digital, I went digital. I was fine. I'm fine with digital. It's so much easier for me. All right, well, we should say good evening. It's about that time of night. Paolo has to get to bed. Did you start the new job, by the way, Paolo?
I did. I'm taking some training courses. Getting the feel of that. But nothing serious yet.
So he still doesn't know what his job is. So he'll let us know when he finally finds out.
I've been learning about bonds today. So
you're like Nick Carraway in The Great Gatsby. He was learning bonds too in 1922. You're just doing it 101 years later. Wow. The same job 101 years later. All right. Well, everybody have a good night out there. We'll catch you next time.
Take care, everyone.